is this Orwellian? Or do you just not like it? Because I don't think he knows what Orwellian means.
He has never read a book by George Orwell. I'm sorry. No way has he ever read anything by him.
Hi, I'm Julia.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Kelly.
And this is What You Should Read,
the podcast where we should all over our books.
How's it going, everybody?
Just super. Yeah.
I meant that to sound normal. Like it's normal times.
What are normal times even?
I know. For those of you listening to this in the future, we are recording this mere days after the Trump terrorist attack on our nation's capital. And so it's just been awful, as everyone who was alive will be able to attest to. And so, yeah, we're just kind of reeling from that still.
We didn't even make it a week into the new year.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, with that being said, we're still going to record our podcast. We're not going to stop doing what we love to do, which is reading and talking about reading. So, Kelly, what are you reading this week?
Well, really a lot of Facebook and Twitter.
Yeah.
I did read one of my most anticipated Happily Ever Afters by Elise Bryant, which I thought was a complete delight. Mm-hmm. I absolutely loved it. It was very sweet and very romantic and just a complete joy. And I finished that Wednesday morning. And then, but we started in a pandemic. We can't let a little treason and government overthrowing attempts stop us. So right now I am reading When You Look Like Us by Pamela Harris, which is about a teenage boy whose sister goes missing, and it is a Black family. And nobody is very concerned because, she's a Black teenage girl with a boyfriend, and every so often they call it bliss, but I'm pretty sure that's just pot. Every so often she smokes a little pot, like many, many people do, and nobody is concerned that she's missing. So Jay decides it's up to him to find her, and I'm about 2/3 in. I hope he does.
Nice. Wow, that sounds intense.
Yeah. It's really good. And the fact that I'm not really able to focus on it, it is not the book's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is 2021's fault.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Rachel, what are you reading?
Well, I surprisingly did just finish a book this morning. The day after, the attempted dismantling of our democracy, I had heart surgery. So I've been kind of laid up, not reading much, but I did finish The Midnight Library by Matt Haig, which I have been slowly reading for a while now. I liked it. I did get a little bit, I don't want to say bored, but I think
like repetitive.
Yeah, it was maybe a little repetitive, but maybe that's because I've read a few books like that recently and I just need a break. But I still gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a really good book.
Have you read Addie yet? Addie LaRue?
I have not read Addie LaRue yet either, so I might wait till next month.
Yeah, I would give yourself some time just because you might have the same thought about that. Both are, great books and 5-star reads for me, but that's my thing in books too. Like I can't get enough of it, but I could totally see how someone might be like, okay, Another Life, we get it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm also listening to an audiobook called Serpent and Dove. I forget the author's name, but Shelby Marin, I can't pronounce that, or Madrin. So it's a fantasy romance. The main characters are a witch and a witch hunter, and they end up through really weird circumstances having to get married, but he doesn't know she's a witch, so she's trying to hide that fact about her. And it's a hate to love romance, which I usually love, but I'm finding that the romance is not as earned as I would want it to be. So I'm liking it okay. I'm more than halfway through. I'll finish it. I don't know if I'll move on to the sequel. So nothing too exciting right now, but I have a few books on deck that I'm excited about for future podcast episodes. So I'll definitely dive into those soon.
Good. Well, I hope you're feeling better.
Thanks, I am. Oh, and I want to show off my shirt, which says, "I have personally explained the process to you, Deborah." So
I have the same shirt.
So Julia got us these shirts, and just to celebrate the amazing sassiness of Nora Roberts. I did get a compliment on it in the grocery store. So
good.
Nice.
Mission accomplished.
Kelly, hopefully yours will be arriving soon.
Yes. I am wearing a different shirt that our best friend of the pod, Lisa, sent, and it says "Peace, Love, Holla." If you are not watching us on YouTube, thank you, Lisa. I love it.
Nice.
That's cute.
Yeah, but next time hopefully we can all wear the same shirt. But mine should come tomorrow, so
okay.
I'm excited to wear it by myself next week.
Well, I am currently reading, aside from the Chiron on the CNN screen and a lot of Twitter, I also have been reading kind of off and on in between, because I finished Patsy this weekend, which was beautiful. 5 stars. You should definitely read it. But kind of in between that, sort of before I would go to bed, I would be reading on my Kindle Roman and Jewel by Dana L. Davis, which is one of my most anticipated books of 2021. And this is the YA contemporary novel about a girl named Jersey James, who is in a show on Broadway that it's kind of a Hamilton style retelling of Romeo and Juliet. And she is cast as the swing, or which is kind of like an understudy, except no, not the swing, the standby, excuse me, get my Broadway terms correct. She's cast as the standby because they want a big name for the lead, even though the writer of the musical, who's kind of like Lin-Manuel Miranda, like a fictionalized version of him, he's like, Jersey James is my girl, she is Jewel, she has to play it. But the producers are like, no, we need a name. So they cast Jewel as the standby, but then she ends up having to do a duet during rehearsals with the lead, who she obviously has a crush on. And they just have great chemistry, and she's so good and he's so good. And somehow someone leaks the tape of their rehearsal, and then it goes viral. So now she's like thrust into the spotlight, and she's like 16 or 17 years old and doesn't know how to handle it. And I'm only about 30% of the way through, but I really like it. I'm here for all the Broadway stuff. I love Jersey. She's so sweet. I love all the characters, especially her Aunt Carla is just like one of the best characters ever. I'm not super in love with the whole like insta love that I feel. It's not technically insta love, but I don't know. I have some reservations about the male lead character in the book, so we'll see. I'm withholding judgment right now. But yeah, it's good. I like it, and it fits one of our prompts for the Bachelor/Bachelorette reading challenge, which is the most dramatic season ever Chris Harrison prompt. A book set in a theater or a book about a play. So I think it definitely works for that perfectly.
Sounds great.
I do have that, and I'm hoping to get to it soon because it sounds so fun and just a really good antidote for this.
Yeah.
Which brings us to book news. So,
I thought we weren't going to be able to tie it in. We are.
Oh, hey, you know how great it is when you're reading a book you love? This is not that. This is the exact opposite. But one of the people who I think we can, mm, I'm like, how do I say this without potentially opening myself up to a lawsuit? So Congressman Josh Hawley, is he a senator? Hopefully,
Senator
whatever he
Hawley,
is.
and I think just say the word allegedly at the end
Yeah.
of every sentence. You'll be fine.
Yes. Oh, so what did you say the first part though?
He's senator. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So Senator Josh Hawley, hopefully not for too much longer. That is my own opinion, not necessarily that of the podcast. Had a book deal with Simon and Schuster. It was supposed to come out, I believe, this summer. They have said, yeah, no, that's not happening, after some say that he could be partially credited with the nonsense that happened last weekend, or last Wednesday, rather, after he may or may not have really encouraged it. And there is definitely a picture of him doing that like fist in the air salute to them as he walked by. There is a picture of that. That is not allegedly. The rest is just my opinion. But anyway, so Simon and Schuster released a statement that said, after witnessing the disturbing, deadly insurrection that took place on Wednesday in Washington, D.C., Simon and Schuster has decided to cancel publication of Senator Josh Hawley's forthcoming book, The Tyranny of Big Tech. We did not come to this decision lightly. As a publisher, it will always be our mission to amplify a variety of voices and viewpoints. At the same time, we take seriously our larger public responsibility as citizens and cannot support Senator Hawley after his role in what became a dangerous threat to our democracy and freedom. And because he's a grown-up, Josh Hawley said, absolutely fine, that is how capitalism works. Good for you guys, I will find another publisher. That is not at all what happened. He called them a woke mob and then released this statement. This could not be more Orwellian. Simon & Schuster is canceling my contract because I was representing my constituents, leading a debate on the Senate floor on voter integrity, which they have now decided to redefine as sedition. Let me be clear, this is not just a contract dispute, it's a direct assault on the First Amendment. Only approved speech cannot be published. This is the left looking to cancel everyone they don't approve of. I will fight this cancel culture with everything I have. We'll see you in court.
Can I just say, one publisher not wanting to publish your book is not you not being allowed to publish a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think we all know that. I think we all know that this is the free market at work, and Simon and Schuster is allowed to publish whatever they want.
Yeah.
And it floors me how as soon as a Republican doesn't get their way, all of a sudden, they're not for the free market anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love the irony that the title of his book is The Tyranny of Big Tech. And yet it was a good old-fashioned book publisher that is suppressing his voice.
Yes.
Ah.
Taking away his First Amendment rights.
Yeah.
I feel like Simon and Schuster absolutely made the right call. Whatever money they have to pay a lawyer to get out of their contract, if they even have to. I mean, most publishers at this point, I'm sure, are writing in morality clauses into their contract, so they probably, I don't know. I have no idea what the contract says, but it's a good investment long term for them to ditch this book. It will save them money from people boycotting them for aligning themselves with him. And I think we should start a new segment on the podcast. Is this Orwellian? Or do you just not like it? Because I don't think he knows what Orwellian means.
He has never read a book by George Orwell. I'm sorry. No way has he ever read anything by him.
No. But that actually was addressed by my personal favorite response. The only one I'm going to share, because there are a lot of great ones, but this one I think is the best and most perfect. It was tweeted by Rita Mead, who is at Screwy Decimal on Twitter, which I find just delightful. And this is what she said. It's not Orwellian. Orwell got published.
Oh. Wow.
That's amazing.
Yes. So, I mean, really, whatever we have to say, it might be as true as that, but it won't be as savage as that.
True.
But we might keep trying.
Well, you know, if he feels like his book is so important, it needs to get out there, he is more than welcome to put it on his own website. And then he can link to it from his webpage that he has as a United States Senator.
Yep. He is a senator. I'm sure he has plenty of money to self-publish a book.
Yeah.
Or you could just put it on a WordPress site. If the thing is that you think that your content is so important and it needs to get out there, you know, like, no, you just want a big book deal.
Yeah.
That's what this is. And it's going to go to a much smaller publisher now who doesn't, you know, care about their reputation. So that's what he's mad about.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, moving on to our next segment, we are going to do, you know what you should read. And this week we're going to do a special version of it where we each have picked a prompt from the Bachelorette Nation reading challenge that we've come up with, that mostly Julia has come up with. So Julia, what prompt did you choose and what is your recommendation?
So my prompt that I've chosen is, I'm not here to make friends. So this prompt means you should pick a book that features a strong friendship group. And for this prompt, I am recommending Last Chance Saloon by Marian Keyes. So this is one of her standalones. It's not part of a series. So Last Chance Saloon is about a group of friends, Tara, Claire, I think, and Fintan. No, Tara, Catherine, and Fintan. So they're friends from school. They've known each other since they were young, and they live in Ireland, or they're from Ireland, and they just meet frequently at the pub to talk about their lives, especially their love lives. Fintan's really the only one that has a thriving love life at this point. He lives with his wonderful boyfriend, and the other two, they're just kind of a mess. But they, you know, support each other, and they're just so funny and like have each other's backs throughout the whole book. And then something happens that kind of turns their world upside down. And so they really need to be there for each other and also, you know, do some soul searching and make some changes for the better. So it's just a lovely book. And, you know, I love Marian Keyes more than anything. So, and this is definitely a perfect, you know, just encapsulation of why she's such a great writer. It's funny, it's heartwarming, it deals with tough issues. So yeah, so that's Last Chance Saloon by Marian Keyes.
I love that book. Kelly, what is your prompt and what is your recommendation for that prompt?
I picked Tayshia Adams. So that is read a book by a Black or Latina author. And I picked one of the good ones by Maritza Moulite and Micah Moulite, and I might have mispronounced all of those words. But it's fantastic. So one of the things that I've really been trying to think about lately is the way that people are portrayed on social media, like after their death. For example, after Trayvon Martin was murdered by George Zimmerman, depending on who was talking about it, you either had the pictures of him where he looks like a terrifying person, like with the scowl on his face and, you know, like just middle fingers aimed at the camera and everything, versus the picture of him where he's in the red t-shirt and he's smiling and he looks, you know, like a guy that any of us would have known when we were in high school. And in this book, the middle daughter of her parents, so they had like a daughter who's off in college, the middle daughter who's in high school and who is very socially active. She has a vlog where she talks about social justice issues, and the younger daughter who's, you know, like kind of aware, but she doesn't really care all that much. And, you know, I mean, she's young. It's not that she doesn't care, it's that she's young. And the middle daughter goes to a protest against her parents' wishes, and she ends up arrested and killed.
Oh.
And it is an incredibly brutal book because she is taken on a rough ride, which is what happened with Freddie Gray here in Baltimore. And it was an incredibly traumatic thing to read because I've read about what that can do to your body, and that's what I was thinking about. But the most interesting thing is how when the sister died, people were talking about like, oh, she was one of the good ones. She had really good grades. You know, she worked hard. She was going to go to college. And her younger sister was like, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, when we start to think about, you know, George Floyd versus Breonna Taylor, that implies that police are right to kill at least some of the people. And that's a really dangerous thing to start thinking about. And I also don't love the idea that like anybody is disposable or that we're better off without groups of people. And it's, I mean, it's an intense book, but it's also a very good, very fast read. Like I could not stop reading it.
Ooh.
And I I do recommend, but it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a important book.
Yeah.
Right. Thanks. So my prompt that I chose was First Impression Rose. So, which the assignment is to read a debut book, so or an author's first published book. So I chose Beyond the Point by Claire Gibson. So this was a book of the month pick back a year and a half ago, 2019. It is such a good book. So it follows three women, young women, as they graduate high school and start their careers at West Point. And so the thing about it is they start at West Point in like 2001. So their fall of their freshman year, or maybe it's their sophomore year, is 9/11/2001, the terrorist attacks on the World Trade Centers in New York. And so by the time they graduate, they're at war. And it just follows them as they, you know, are going through their careers, which don't maybe look the same as they thought they were going to look going into school. And as they're just like growing up and falling in love or, you know, losing loved ones. And I mean, it's just a very emotional book. And I think I sobbed harder reading that book than I had reading almost any other book up to that point. So it's a very emotional book, but it's really entertaining. It's the writing is superb and the characters are incredible.
I have been thinking about that book. I never picked it up, but that does sound really good.
Yeah. I don't have it with me. It's at our mom's house.
Got it.
Mom of the pod, Becky, has it at her house.
I'll have to pick it up when we can travel again. Yep. Okay, well, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, today we are doing our anti-TBR tag episode. And Rachel's going to explain more about that in a little bit. So stick around and we'll be right back. So if you've listened to this podcast at all, you know that the three of us love using Book of the Month. Book of the Month is a super popular and fast-growing online book service for readers. Their mission is to promote new and emerging authors and help readers discover books they love. And I have found so many books that I have absolutely loved through this service. In December, I got The Office of Historical Corrections by Danielle Evans, a book of short stories. It was amazing. One of my favorite books of the year, and so many more new authors I've discovered through Book of the Month.
Absolutely. I've also found a lot of great authors through Book of the Month, and it's no wonder because they have a team that vets hundreds of books every month. And what they do is they pick from those hundreds of books in order to give the readers, the choice of the best curated selection of new early release titles. So you can spend more time reading and less time researching. So I've definitely found some new favorites through Book of the Month. So for instance, this month I got Outlawed by Anna North, and I'm not even all the way done with it, but I love it already. Think True Grit meets Handmaid's Tale, and it's so, so good already.
Oh, that sounds really good. And I'm excited about my January choice, which is The Prophets by Robert Jones Jr., who is great on Twitter, by the way. I follow him on Twitter. He runs a popular blog, Son of Baldwin. And the book is about two men who are enslaved. It's set during slavery, and they are in love, and their relationship obviously puts them and others in a lot of danger. So I'm really excited to get to this one.
And, if you're, looking at the choices for that month and you don't really see anything you want that month, it's super easy to skip. It's risk-free because, you pay for a credit, but if you don't use it, it just skips forward to the next month. And then at that time, you won't be charged for the next month's credit. And that came in really, that came in handy for me last year when I was doing my book buying ban, which was about 3 months in 2020 where I didn't buy any books. And it was really easy to just skip Book of the Month for a few months.
But you also don't have to worry because I have never skipped in the 2.5 years I've been a member. In fact, I may or may not have 3 accounts because between the curated books that we were talking about and also the add-ons, which is another fantastic thing. The problem isn't, I don't think there's a book that I like. The problem is the boxes don't come big enough for all the books I like. And I've been trying to read outside my comfort zone for a little while now. And Book of the Month makes it really easy to do that because everything they have just looks so good, even if it's not a genre I would normally read. The Space Between Worlds by Makaya Johnson, which I know Julia's talked about. I read that recently and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was completely beautiful, and the thoughts about who is valuable and the way that people can stay the same even across multiverses. I absolutely loved it. I've loved everything I've gotten. And also, if you're on a little bit of a budget, they have the best price for hardback books. You can get a new release for usually $14.99 a month, but we have a promo code where you can get your first box for $9.99 with the promo code What You Should Read, all one word, What You Should Read.
Yes, so check it out at bookofthemonth.com and use our promo code What You Should Read to get your first book for just $9.99.
All right, welcome back. And today we are going to be doing our anti-TBR episode. So what does that mean? So we talk a lot about books that we want to read. But we know that nobody's ever going to have time to read every book on the planet.
Not with that attitude.
All right. Well, we'll say it this way. Until we are able to do nothing but read all day, every day, it's going to be really hard to keep up with all the books out there. Even if they're a great book, there may be some books that we just don't want on our TBR just to save us some time. It's important to prioritize. So this anti-TBR tag, I'll call it, started on YouTube, a subsection of YouTube called BookTube, which I watch a lot of. So a lot of BookTube creators are doing this tag, and it was actually started by Nicole and her books. So if you're interested, we can link her channel in the show notes. So basically there are 8 questions, and we go down through the questions, just talking about which books we may not want to read. And it's not because we think they're bad books or anything. There is some questions about problematic books or authors that we might not want to read, but for the most part, we're not saying if you enjoy these books that, you know, you have no taste or anything. It's just these books are not something that we want to put on our TBR in order to be able to better prioritize our own lists. So to get us started, the first question is a popular book that everyone loves that you have no interest in reading. So Julia, why don't you start us off?
Okay, this was hard because I feel like there are a lot of books that are loved pretty universally, but you can always find someone that doesn't like it.
Yeah.
However, there is one book that I've always heard about, and when I looked it up on Goodreads, everyone who I knew who had rated it 5 stars. So clearly it's well loved, and that is The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. And I have never read this book, and it's never been a book that I've been compelled to read, despite all of the great reviews from people whose opinions I trust. And I'm sure it's a wonderful book. Like, I'm sure if I read it, I probably would enjoy the experience, but I just have no pull towards this book. And I think it's because it is about infidelity. That's what it's all about. It's about people in relationships having affairs with others. I'm sure it's about a lot more than that, but that's just not a topic that I myself am drawn to read a book about. So yeah, I don't know. It's one of those classics too, right? I mean, I think it was published in the 80s originally. So yeah, not interested, not going to read it. So you know what I was also thinking though, is like, watch me read all of these books that I talk about today, because I'm such a contrarian.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Kelly, did you say you wanted to go last during these rounds, or
yes,
something
please.
else? Okay, all right, so I'll go next. Okay, so I'll answer next. So for me, this book was especially very popular in 2019. Everybody was reading it. It was everywhere. Normal People by Sally Rooney. And I only say I don't really feel like reading this because after 2 years of everybody talking about it, I still don't know what it's about. Because when everybody starts to describe the plot, I lose my train of thought. I just am not interested. I think I get bored or something. So it just doesn't sound like a book for me. Doesn't sound like something I would enjoy very much. So yeah, I'm gonna go with that one.
I have that on my shelf and I've been meaning to read it, but I too don't really know what it's about other than a love story of some sort.
Right. I know they adapted it for Hulu, is it?
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I'll watch the adaptation, and if I like it, maybe I will read it, but for now it's just not on my radar.
Yeah. It is quite short, which is one reason why I think eventually I will get to it, but I can totally see why it would kind of fall off your radar after initially being kind of a buzzy book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very happy that I have not read either of those. I do have Normal People, which I bought because it made President Obama's best books list of that year. But as I do, I have not actually read it. I think it's about a relationship.
Yeah.
But that's as much as I know.
I think it's about a guy is really popular and the girl not so much. And so that's the conflict. Yeah, it doesn't sound great when I'm explaining it, but I'm sure it's better than how I'm explaining it.
I'm sure it's a good book. I just, gotta draw the line somewhere.
Yep, for sure. Life is too short.
Yep.
And if any of these are your favorite books, listeners, great.
Yeah.
Every book has their reader, and we're not saying that no one should read these books. In fact, you might hear us talking about these and you might think, oh, that actually sounds like something I would like.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll read it and then email them at whatyoushouldreadpodcast@gmail.com and tell them how wrong they were. And we would love that.
Yeah. Tell us, try and change our minds.
Yeah, for sure.
So I didn't have one off the top of my head. So then I was Googling really popular books, And then I realized I haven't read Anxious People yet. And so I'm going to read that. I think I did this wrong.
Kelly's like, these are books that we haven't read yet. Right. Right.
Books that we don't have and haven't read. Right.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be great.
So to be clear, you do want to read Anxious People.
I really do. Yeah.
Okay.
Hopefully
Is there a book you don't want to read that everyone else likes?
I don't think anybody likes it, but I don't want to read The Tyranny of Big Tech. And no, I don't have to.
Perfect.
Okay, so I guess we'll move on to question number 2. So this one is a classic book or author that you don't have an interest in reading. So one of the classics that everybody talks about all the time that just doesn't catch your fancy. So Julia, what about you?
This one was actually easy for me. I have no interest in reading A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Published first in 1962. All I know about this book is that it's scary, and there was a movie adaptation, which I did watch at least part of when I was studying abroad in England. My flatmates had it on our illegal TV, because you have to have a license to have a TV, and we did not have one. Anyway.
You have to have a license to have a TV?
It used to be, yeah, you had to pay. It was like a tax that you paid to have a TV in your home, basically. I don't know. So I don't know if I watched part of it or if I watched the whole thing and just blocked it all out. But there's one scene that I have a visual in my head for that book, and it's, with the long nose and everything. And it scared the crap out of me. So I have no interest in reading the book. I actually have a pair of socks that are from that store you like, Kelly.
Out of Print?
Out of Print. That is A Clockwork Orange socks. They're actually quite comfortable, and I like them. I got them as a gift from someone at work. But I have never read the book, and I do not plan to read the book.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you, Rachel, since we know Kelly's going last?
So for me, so those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, my cat just came into the frame. Okay.
So cute.
I know.
Kitty, come back.
This is a book that I know a lot of people read in high school, and I didn't. And I just have no interest, and that is The Catcher in the Rye by Jd Salinger.
Oh,
I know. It sounds pretentious to me. I'm sure it's a great book. It just doesn't sound like it would be something I would enjoy.
Oh, it's very pretentious.
Not always a bad thing.
Yeah, it's still great. I mean, I will say I read it when I was in high school as a sophomore. I was 15. I read it during the ice storm of 1998.
What?
And we were all stuck at home. Do you remember that week, Rach?
I do, yeah.
Okay, we were all stuck at home without power for a week.
Mm-hmm.
And so we couldn't watch TV. We couldn't go to school. All we could do was play games and read. And I read the whole thing, in a couple days, I think, because it's not very long. And I loved it. And I could be that I just associate it with this week that I have a lot of good memories of, including me and Rachel and our brother laying on the floor of our living room screaming just because out of boredom.
Yeah.
We were just like, ah!
No electricity, no TV. We almost wanted to go to school. It was so boring.
We reached our breaking point that day, but it's still kind of a very clear memory for me. So, but I can totally see why you wouldn't feel compelled to read it for sure. But for me, loved it.
I probably would have read it if I had been assigned it in high school, but I wasn't. Yeah.
Ellie.
So I didn't have an answer off the top of my head. So I Googled, and then I realized I haven't actually read any James Baldwin. So I ended up getting If Beale Street Could Talk, and I think it's The Fire Within, and then I Am Not Your Negro. So I have a lot of James Baldwin to read because I feel embarrassed that I have not actually read him. But also I have not read Catcher in the Rye. And I feel like at this point I'm too old. And I would just read it and be like, you are such a whiny asshole.
Have you read any Ernest Hemingway?
No.
I would say you could skip that and feel confident saying, you know, I'm not going to read Farewell to Arms, or wait, is that Hemingway or Faulkner? Yeah. That's Farewell to Arms. I think you could say that safely. That's not.
Probably not going to read any Hemingway either.
Okay, so to recap, Kelly is going to read James Baldwin, and
I like this. Kelly's providing a positive spin on it.
I like it. I hope we get a real answer eventually, but we'll see.
You might be getting a real answer next time.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay, good.
So that brings us to question 3. So question 3 has 2 parts. So you can either have one answer for both parts, 2 different answers, whatever kind of you want to say. So the first part is an author whose books you have no interest in reading, just in general. Or the sub part of that is it could be a problematic author whose books you have no interest in reading. So you could have 1 or 2 choices for this.
Okay.
Or as many as you want. So go ahead, Julia.
So I only have one choice, and I guess it works for both, although I don't know that I think she's problematic, maybe a little bit, but she was involved in a little bit of controversy recently. That's not why I'm not interested in reading her books, but it's definitely like seals the deal, I guess. So it's, and I know Kelly loves her books.
I was like, oh God, Ellen Hildebrand. Yeah.
Ellen Hildebrand. No way. Okay, well, I'll say she writes those summer books, like Summer of '69, and she's a romance writer, right, Kelly?
Not really.
Not really.
Okay, why don't you guys do this, and then I will talk about why I do like her, and then I'll talk about my problematic author who is not Ellen Hildebrand or J.K. Rowling.
Well, so Ellen Hildebrand, her books, they've been book of the month options, and anytime I've read the description, they just haven't captured me. I just haven't read them and felt like, oh, I have to read that. And you know, it kind of is like, you know, those authors like Jodi Picoult or Jennifer Weiner who, you know, every time they're out with a new book, I have to read it. Ellen Hildebrand was just never on my radar until maybe this year. So I know she is one of those kinds of authors for a lot of people, but because I never got into her, I just don't feel like it would be worth picking it up and having another must-read author on my list. You know, I want to discover new debut authors. So there's that. And then there was also a review of her book on Instagram recently that made the book kind of sound a little like, wow, topsy-turvy and, you know, kind of cuckoo bananas, but like in a fun way. You know, the reviewer, it wasn't a bad review. The review was just like, I cannot believe I spent, you know, so much time reading this book, and it's super, I don't know, not weird, but just like unrealistic, I guess, all the plot twists. And, you know, I'm so frustrated with it, and I loved it anyway. You know, basically you know, we all have books like that, right?
Yeah.
And so it wasn't a bad review. It was just kind of a funny review. And then Ellen Hildebrand herself comments on the review, like kind of a snarky comment, like, how, you know, I can't believe you tagged me. Or she didn't tag her. She used her hashtag.
Yeah.
@mention her. And so it caused this firestorm of reviewers coming to this reviewer's defense, rightly so, because reviews are not for authors, they are for readers, and authors should just stay out of it. If they don't like a review, just keep scrolling and deal with it on your own, but don't make the reviewer feel bad for giving an honest review. So once I saw that, I said, okay, I'm not gonna, you know, maybe I would have picked her book up at some point, but I'm not super interested, so I just won't.
Yeah, I had kind of the same thoughts as you, which is why she was one of my choices as well, although I do have another choice. So I will talk about this other author who is Cassandra Clare. And I'm sure there are so many readers out there that just are clutching their pearls that I do not want to read. Cassandra Clare. So she wrote the what are they called?
Mortal Instruments?
Yes, the Mortal Instruments series and like a bunch of other offshoot series from that series. I actually did read City of Bones, and it was not great. I mean, it was fine. And I've heard like that wasn't her best. It was her first novel, so, and that her writing gets better. So I don't doubt that. But she is slightly problematic, and I say slightly. I think it's bigger than what most of the public knows. She definitely has had some issues with, claims of copyright infringement, and she also like writes about incest and stuff. It's just not, it's just kind of and yeah, it's just it just rubs me the wrong way. So again, a lot of people love her books, and so I don't fault them for that. I'm sure they are good. It just not something, and especially at this point where she has so many books published, just like Ellen Hildebrand, it's like to catch up would take years. So
the only thing I've read by her is her Harry Potter fan fiction before she became.
And a lot of that got moved into the Mortal Instruments, especially the incest storyline, which she wrote a lot about Ron and Ginny, apparently. Yeah, it's weird. I think that wasn't her most popular Harry Potter fan fiction. Right. She had more of like a Draco Hermione type of
yes, that's the one I loved.
Yeah. Which she was very famous on all the fan fiction like sites and everything. But then she took them all down when she got her book deal, I guess.
Yeah.
Because she was reusing a lot of those stories, which is her right, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember it being a weird discussion, as in, can you copyright infringe on your own? Not copyright infringement, but she was using that material.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I guess is what that lady did with 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah. Yeah. E.L. James.
If someone wants to publish your book, just it's your words. But I think there was a different issue with copyright infringement. Like, it was something different. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think there was an allegation that some of her fan fiction was plagiarized from somebody else, I think. But I think there was something else too. I read a bunch of the Mortal Instruments series, but not all of it. And I don't remember all the details because it was a long time ago, but there was something that happened that like really kind of, I was like, nope, no more. But as far as the incest thing goes, they were not actually siblings or half siblings. They thought they were, but they weren't. It was not a VC Andrews deal.
Yeah. Yeah, the thing is like, I kept hearing like they kept going back and forth whether or not they thought they were, but they would still be together or something. It was weird. I don't know. It was just weird.
I mean, if there's even a chance, you might want to just not take the chance.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So for me, Ellen Hildebrand, she's not on a level of Jodi Picoult or Jennifer Weiner. Her books are very fun. I would have a hard time telling you for sure, yes, I read that one, I did not read that one, or what they're about. Her next one, though, Golden Girls, sounds really good. It sounds kind of like The Good Place or Defending Your Life, where you die and you have to sort of justify what you did on Earth.
Aww.
So that sounds really good. I will let you know.
Yeah, maybe I will be compelled to read it. You never know.
I will most likely be getting it unless she does something else. But it'll probably be a book of the month add-on, and if it is, I'm definitely getting it, and if you want, you can borrow it. But speaking of authors behaving badly, I'm going to tell you about Kathleen Hale, an author I will never ever read. Well, she wrote one book, I read it, it was fine. And then have you guys heard about this, Kathleen Hale?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so there was a review that she did not like. She basically found the reviewer figured out who the reviewer was. Like she didn't use her actual name. She had like a pen name, the reviewer, but she figured out who she was, went to her house and like stood outside, and she wrote a piece. I forget which magazine, but she wrote a piece basically making herself sound like this complete heroine of the people, because there was this review and it was so mean, and but I figured out who this person is and I'm going to show them. And then she went, but like ended up not harassing the person and just went home. But still not great. And I believe the reviewer has stopped blogging about books entirely, because
Aw.
I for sure would if
Yeah.
somebody went to my house and then I found out about it because it was in a magazine article on the internet. And so this was probably like 10-ish years ago. But then what happened is she wrote a book of essays, and I'm looking this up so I can give you the exact correct title. She wrote a book called Kathleen Hale is a Crazy Stalker. And it's a collection of stories. And it includes her piece about going to the blogger's house. And it's...
Wow. So not only did she commit a crime, but now she's profiting off of it.
Yes.
Wow.
And it's even weirder because like she got into a fight with someone who used to be a friend, and I feel like she did something like cut the person's hair off or something.
Oh my God.
She is an actual insane person.
Yeah.
That is my opinion. Not
she does not sound
the
stable.
No, she doesn't. And in this, she's like, it's like all these essays, and it's like the mesmerizing stories of a trip to hunt wild hogs in Florida and a standoff with an anonymous blogger. And I'm like, that's a really interesting way to say I doxed and stalked a stranger from the internet.
Yeah.
And it's I think the whole, oh my God, and you really should look it up on Goodreads, because like it has a 1.96 rating, and that's because I believe literally every book blogger on Twitter, including but not limited to me, one-starred it and was like, no. No, we're not reading this. There was actually a hashtag hail no.
Perfect.
I did not come up with it, but I think it's great. And it's, I think the situation was made even weirder. She had a 2-book deal with HarperCollins's YA division. I read the first one. This all happened. And then her mother-in-law, I think, is like someone pretty high up at Harper. So she did not lose her book deal. A second book came out. It did not do well, review-wise.
Wow.
And then this, and hopefully now she's done, because it was really scary. And I actually use my real name on the internet as a book blogger and now as a podcaster, and it's so scary to be like, okay, well, if I say I don't like a book, is someone gonna come to my house?
Right, exactly.
Right.
All these authors that are just like, I feel like it's happening more and more lately too, that just feel like they can start a Twitter rant, about a bad review, and it's like, get over it.
Yeah.
The thing about social media is that it's public. So if you're gonna behave badly, expect some backlash. Yeah.
I mean, It's so weird that it was Ellen Hilderbrand doing that, because it's like, okay, I get it. I'm petty. There's a lot of people I want to snap at, whether it's somebody's relative saying, please don't talk about politics on Facebook or whatever. Thank you. But, it's like, you're Ellen Hilderbrand. You're pretty beloved by a lot of people. Like, you're fine. Calm down.
Yeah.
People
And this review, like I said, this review is not a bad review. It was funny. If she wanted to comment, she should have just said like, "Yup," like, or like, side eye or
in on the joke, and people might be like, "Oh, I might pick that up."
Exactly. If she had done that, I would have been like, you know what? Maybe I will read her. So
yeah. Okay, so the next question was, an author you have read a couple of books from, and have decided their books were not for you. Since it's so similar to the questions we just answered, we're going to skip over it and go to the next question, which is a genre that you have no interest in, or a genre you have tried to get into and couldn't. So Julia, why don't you go first?
So at first I was going to say horror because I don't like scary things generally, but that's not really true that I have no interest in reading horror. There are some horror books that are on my TBR. I'm really interested in reading Emma's book coming out. But in general, horror, and then also Southern Gothic, which I believe might be a little bit like Emma's book might be a Southern Gothic book as well. But what I have read in the past, I just don't have as much interest in reading Southern Gothic or horror as I do other genres. But this one's a hard one because I can't say I would never read those genres. I think the genre I really just have zero interest in at all is comic books. Specifically superhero comic books, not graphic novels. I have an interest in graphic novels, but comic books specifically. So that's my answer. Superhero comic books.
I do think I have one that you would like, but I totally understand because it is one of the only ones that I like also. So
yeah.
Great. For me, I sort of narrowed it into a subgenre. So in general, I don't read a lot of sci-fi, but I have found some sci-fi books that I did like, particularly the what is it? The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet.
Yeah.
Chambers. I loved that. And it was, it's definitely sci-fi. But the kind of sci-fi I'm talking about is like, I've dubbed it deep space sci-fi. So like very abstract, very like, I mean, you gotta really like get into it kind of sci-fi where they're just building a whole new world from the ground up, and it's very, the sci part of sci-fi is a big part of it. Those books just to me are just very dense and not always something that I can really get lost in, because I just feel like I'm learning. It's like I'm reading a textbook at the same time as reading a novel.
Yeah.
So it's like I have to learn all this science in order to understand the story. And I'm good at science, but I just want to read a book. So I think for me, those are just books I'm not going to reach for. The Andrew Tchaikovsky, Peter F. Hamilton. I'm just not going to reach for those books, even though my husband loves them.
I was just going to say, those are Will's go-tos.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, it's like there have been some really heavy sci-fi books that have been like, yes. But it has to have good character development, and it can be tough. I think for me, high fantasy is a little bit how you feel about high sci-fi. I feel about high fantasy where it's just like, okay, the whole thing is me learning this world, and that's tough. Takes me out of the story. So I get it.
Yeah. What about you, Kelly?
So I'm trying to read outside my comfort zone, which means reading these books that I might have otherwise said were not for me. When we started doing this, I would have said, and I'm pretty sure I did say, that I don't like romance. I mean, I know I said that, but I'm pretty sure I probably also said I don't really like sci-fi and fantasy. And I'm trying really hard to not do that because there are ones I really love. So I'm trying to read outside my comfort zone, but it's also hard because I'm the kind of person, if I read something and I don't like it, it sort of reinforces, oh, right, I don't like this genre. It's not for me. And then I'm less likely to try again, which is why I like Book of the Month Club so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Use our promo code.
What you should read, all one word. First box for $9.99 that does not include add-ons. You
the
will for
add-ons
sure
are
want
great.
add-ons. Yeah.
Do you think that Angie Thomas's Concrete Rose will be an add-on in
I
February?
hope so.
Or even a main pick, because On the Come Up was a main pick last year or the year before.
It might.
I think on the year before, because we got it at ALA and it was like a finished hardcover.
Oh, it was so good.
Comes out on Tuesday, the day this episode drops. But I wouldn't be surprised if it had been embargoed, and that's why it wasn't a pick.
Early.
This month.
But maybe they'll get it later for not an early release, but it's still, yeah.
I hope so, because it's so good, and I'm really excited for everybody else to get to read it too.
I'm excited for sure. All right, next question. So this one is a book you have bought but will never read. So it can be a book that you've already gotten rid of, like you bought it before, you already unhauled it, or returned it to the library unread, or it's something that you still have, you still own, as a possession, but you just know you're never going to get to it. So Julia, what about you?
This one is hard because I never want to say never if I haven't already well, I guess that's the point, right? If I already gave it away, it means I will never read it. But for me, I think it's Middle Game by Seanan Mcguire, which is so surprising because I love her Wayward Children series so much. Those are some of my favorite books. But Middle Game is a standalone novel that she wrote a couple of years ago. I got it from the library twice and I still haven't read it.
No.
I think the moment has passed. I did start reading it a couple times and just couldn't get into it. So I think the chance, I think the desire for me to read that book has come and gone, and it's probably a great book that I would enjoy. It does seem a little too weird maybe for me. So maybe that's why I couldn't get into it, but yeah, I don't know. Something about it, I couldn't get into it.
Yeah. Makes sense. So mine is, I know you both are going to be like, no, but mine is The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I
haven't read that.
Oh, I thought you had.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, I read The Goldfinch and I actually enjoyed it. A lot of people hate it. I listened to it on audiobook actually. But for some reason, a lot of I think it's just I've seen a lot of reviews or read a lot of reviews of The Secret History that just are not very good, not very flattering, and it talks about how it's kind of racist, kind of not a great story. So for me, that just like, I've got plenty of other books on my shelf to read. So I think I'll just skip it. I'll probably sell it to my local bookstore, used bookstore or something.
Kelly is so disappointed in you.
I just loved it so much. I read it, my best friend Jen read it first, and she talked it up so much that I literally, as soon as we got off the phone, I went to the Ivy down the street and I bought it. And then I came back and started reading it and I loved it.
Aww.
And you know how I generally don't read things right away.
Right.
But I did with that and I thought it was wonderful. And you're probably expecting me to talk about how I added like 20 new books to my collection because of this question. And no. I have two answers. One is a book that I finally got rid of. So as backstory, I have lived in Baltimore for 14 years. It'll be 15 at the end of November. And I bought The Amazing Adventures of Cavalier and Clay in Salisbury before I moved here. I think a year or two before I moved here, actually. Book came with me when I moved. And I never read it. And finally, I think last year, probably 2 years ago now, I finally forced myself to admit, you are never reading this book. So I actually gave it to friend of the pod, Becky, who hopefully has read it by now because that book is so unloved.
It's been on such a journey.
Just sitting on the shelf like, when is it my turn?
I know, right? All these other books just coming in, getting read, getting passed around, getting read again. And I'm just like, I'm a good book. And it's funny because I've also seen it on Kindle sale like so many times. And I haven't bought it because it's like, you're not going to read it. It's not even that I don't want to read it. It's just, I know it's not happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a hard realization, and I don't
is.
like it.
But we have to do it. We have to get through our books.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Some of them are not going to make the cut.
Yeah.
And then my other answer, books I still have, I know for a fact I will not be reading the first 4 Robert Galbraith books, which are J.K. Rowling's detective series. The dark side of buying books and not reading them is, I thought I'm going to get these and I'm going to binge them right before the 5th book comes out.
Yeah.
And then it turns out the 5th book is trash.
Yeah.
And it turns out sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was like, and it turns out the author is trash, so they're just hanging out over here, not getting read. If anybody wants them, let me know.
I was going to say, just donate them. That way someone who wants to read them doesn't have to give her any money to read them.
True.
So if you want them, let me know. Going super cheap.
Email us.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one is kind of related, is a series that you have no interest in reading, or a series that you have read some of, like you maybe read the first book or the first couple books, but you have no interest in continuing with the series. So Julia, how about you?
So it's funny. I didn't even think of the Cuckoo's Calling, Robert Galbraith, I guess the Cormoran Strike, but yeah, definitely. I read the first one. I liked it. I started the second one and DNF'd it. And even before all of this came out about her, I was planning not to continue with it. But my real answer that I wrote down beforehand was the Elena Ferrante books, the Neapolitan novels, My Brilliant Friend being the first one. Is it the Neapolitan?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
And I think I would. So I have a friend, a coworker, Sasha, who, if she's listening, she's probably like, no, because she keeps encouraging me to read it. And I keep saying like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to give it another chance. But I DNF'd the first book. I just couldn't get all the way through it. But Sasha tells me the rest of the series gets so much better. So maybe eventually I will pick it back up. But I just realistically, I don't think I'm going to get to it.
Yeah. I've thought about like deciding not to read any more of those books. I did read all of the first one and I did like it. But I was like, I don't know if I really, have that strong of feelings one way or the other of continuing it. But the more I think about it, the more I want to try, because they're older and then obviously they get older as the books get. And I think that would be more interesting. So I probably will try that, but yeah, I don't blame you.
Yeah. What about you, Rach?
So for me, I don't really have any interest in like any of those long series by Sarah J. Maas.
Oh yeah.
I think she's cool. Like I think she's one of those authors that puts out a ton of work and has so far not come out as problematic in any way. I wouldn't feel guilty about reading her books. And I guess they're really steamy. But I don't know, they just don't interest me, just the type of stories that she tells. So, and I feel bad because she is another very popular author. But I just, not for me, I don't think.
Yeah, I feel the same. Kelly?
So I have an answer, but it's a different reason. So when I was in high school, I started reading Sue Grafton's Kinsey Milhome series. And I have read all of them except for her book of essays, which is Kinsey and Me. And then I have not read Why Is for Yesterday. And it's not that I didn't want to read them. I just, I didn't. And then she died. And she was so adamant, like she didn't want them to be made into movies. She didn't want a ghostwriter because she had been fighting cancer. And she was like, I don't, I don't want anyone but me writing this world.
Right.
And so her family were like, as far as we're concerned, the alphabet stops at Y. And I don't want to live in a world where I've read every single Kinsey Milhome book. So I might end up finishing it anyway, because, I want to know what happens, but.
Yeah,
for sure.
Such a good series, though.
Aw.
I've never read those.
Me either.
I have most of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so last question is a new release that you have no interest in reading. So something that just came out recently, let's say within the last year, or is going to be released soon, like within the next year. So Julia, what is your new release that you're not interested in?
That would be Midnight Sun by Stephanie Meyer. Final answer.
I'll take Midnight Sun for 2000.
I think my Twilight days are over. I had a lot of fun reading them, and I reread them too. Great time, but I have no interest in returning to that world. And yet I'm happy for those for whom it is a delight to have this book. That's great. I know this is just a shit show of a year and continues to be really tough. So anywhere where we can find joy is great. But for me, I'm going to skip.
Same. And I will kind of go on that same theme of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. Even though I love The Hunger Games, I love it. And I would reread The Hunger Games. Maybe I will this year just to kind of get that nostalgia. But after hearing your review of it, Julia, and just overall, like, thinking about books that I just don't have time for. I think that's
you can definitely skip this one. I read it, so you don't have to.
Thank you. All right, Kelly, what about you?
The undoubtedly soon to be self-published The Tyranny of Big Tech.
Yes. This is the answer to all of it. Or anything published by anyone with the last name Trump.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, or I guess the genuine answer, the actually real existing in the world book. Larry Hogan released a memoir last year, and apparently I don't even know what it's called. I could look it up on my phone. I'm not going to, but apparently a good chunk of it is talking shit about Baltimore and Stephanie Rawlings Blake, and I have no time for it or him. So I won't be reading that either, whatever it's called.
Also, isn't Kellyanne Conway getting a multi-million-dollar book deal?
Maybe not now.
I hope not now, but probably.
Might lose hers as well.
I think, Forbes did that article that was like, anyone who hires any of these people, we are going to call them out and be watching them like hawks, and basically treating your company like everything you say is a lie, because you can't trust these people. So
I gotta say, I'm a little surprised that Forbes said that, but okay.
I know. No, but I mean, I think
it's bad when Forbes is gonna tell you you're too controversial.
Who was Kellyanne's publisher that gave her a deal?
I don't remember. I don't even know if it was official or if it was just rumblings of it.
I bet she'll be dropped.
I hope so. I can look. But also, and it skipped my mind, but I should have mentioned this in book news, but YA author Jamie Mcguire, did you guys hear about this?
Mm-mm.
Oh, yes.
So she's on Parler, and apparently had a post there. I don't know if they're called posts there, but like some sort of writing on there talking about patriots and a civil war that's coming, and her publisher is Simon & Schuster, so hopefully they drop her too.
Yeah, they should.
Book deal.
I've seen all sorts of articles about it, but I can't find who the publisher is.
We'll find out.
Yeah. We'll report back to the listeners.
Yeah.
Or listeners, email us if you know. Tweet at us.
Yeah, I don't see it either. I guess we can tweet at her daughter Claudia. She might answer.
Yes, Claudia.
she might be getting a book deal herself. Apparently,
her book I would read.
Yeah, I was
I
gonna
would read
say
hers.
let's read that one.
Yeah. Daily Mail just says a multi-million-dollar book deal, and it's, oh God. Of all the White House insiders, Kellyanne is going to write the most unvarnished, eye-popping account of her time working for the president, the unnamed source said. She's got some of us quaking in our boots.
No, not interested.
I mean, yeah. And like, she's still supporting him now, so it's like,
yeah, no, I have no interest.
Yeah. I guess I would change my answer to that. Like, an upcoming release. And she might have received the largest advance ever for a Trump tell-all. And John Bolton got $2 million.
No.
So whatever it is, it's probably more than that.
Listen, listeners, we need a name for our listeners. Shooters. Listen, shooters.
Shoodheads.
Listen, shoodheads. If any of you care to read that book and let us know how bad it is, please do. But personally, I hope it never gets published.
Same.
Actually, my mom, political correspondent Sue Hager, would probably read it.
You know what? I would like to hear what she has to say about it. That would be very entertaining. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah. I've been trying to get her to come on and talk about the ones she's read, because pretty much every gossipy one, she's read it.
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, this was fun, Rach. Thanks for introducing us to this tag. And I hope we didn't, aside from a few exceptions, I hope we didn't bash too many favorites of the shitheads out there. But
it's shitheads, and we love whatever books you want to read. We're happy for you.
It's just nice to know there's, you don't have to read every book. Just because someone else loves it doesn't mean that it's for you or that it has to go on your TBR. You should read what you want to read.
Exactly. Read what you like. All right.
So that is our show. And again, remember, you can sign up for Book of the Month Club using our promo code, What You Should Read, all one word. Get your first box for $9.99 instead of $14.99.
Yes. And follow us on social media. We are at WYSR_podcast on Instagram and on Twitter. We are on Goodreads at What You Should Read Podcast. You can email us at whatyoushouldreadpodcast@gmail.com. And please leave us a rating and a review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
And now you know what you should not read.
You're welcome.
Bye, shitheads.